The New York Mets dodged a major bullet as Juan Soto got hurt in last night's game, but it's not as bad as these pictures make it seem. However, this could have major implications with the trade deadline less than 36 hours away, as the Mets could make an unnecessary impulse decision in a reaction to this injury, which is exactly what we're going to dive into only here on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. I'll take you through all of it. I'll take you through this Soto injury and its implications. But first, I got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.2% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this breaking news and developing story with SNY's X. They say, quote, Juan Soto was visited by the Mets athletic trainers after fouling a ball off his leg. Soto finished the at-bat and grounded out. Now, as you can see, there is a video attached. I unfortunately cannot play it because of copyright reasons, but if you want to go ahead and check that out, it's readily available on multiple platforms, including SNY's X. So, since I can't play it, we're going to do an elaborate dive into basically exactly what this 35-second clip is. It is 1-0 Padres, top 4, 0-2 count in last night's game, and Ryan Berger, the pitcher for the Padres, delivers, and Juan Soto fouls one off his back leg. Now, he's a left-handed hitter, so his back leg is his left leg. It was around the shin, just above the ankle, according to the broadcast. Soto continuously hobbled around afterwards, walking gingerly, and that's honestly an understatement. He was clearly hobbling. The head athletic trainer came out, and Gary Cohen, the Mets play-by-play announcer, on the broadcast said, quote, Soto having trouble putting any weight on that leg. So with that, let's turn it over to the experts. What do they have to say about this injury? We'll start off with Mark W. Sanchez of the New York Post, who confirms that Soto is indeed hurt. He says, quote, Juan Soto, a rock who has played in 107 of 108 games in year one of his $765 million contract with the Mets, had to be removed from game 108 with what the team called a foot contusion. Keep in mind, he only missed one game because he was simply benched. He was having a really rough start to the season. He got benched. That game was not because of an injury. To go on with the quote, Soto was in obvious pain and hobbled his way halfway to first base before taking a knee, with a trainer and manager Carlos Mendoza running out to check on him. Let's see how the remainder of the at-bat played out. According to Sanchez, he says, quote, after several minutes of examination, Soto initially remained in the game to finish his at-bat. He smacked a one-hopper to the right side and was robbed on a diving play from Padres second baseman Jake Cronenworth. Soto ran to first base, but not smoothly. Now, Soto mashed that ball. It was 95.9 miles an hour off the bat, but Cronenworth, like we heard in the quote, made a really nice play, went to his left, laid out, and snubbed Soto of a base hit, who probably wasn't moving very quick because obviously he wasn't running very smoothly. With that, let's go ahead and turn it to Soto himself. What was his reaction about the at-bat and that injury in the moment? He said, quote, it was a tough moment. I just tried to come out and see if it goes away. Definitely when I swung the last moment, I tried to run, tried to push, couldn't do it. We'll just take our time and see how it goes. But at the end, we decided not to keep pushing it. And normally, baseball players, athletes in general, they want to push through these kind of injuries, but it's smart. When you are the highest paid athlete in all of professional sports, it makes sense that you're not going to go ahead and push an injury. Come out, let it be, if anything, half a game, a couple of days at absolute most, instead of trying to push your way through it and then getting a major injury as a result. It's better to see Juan Soto miss 10 at-bats than try and push through this injury and eventually miss 100 or 200 at-bats because he's out with a major injury. So let's see what his overall reaction is. He says, quote, I think it's going to be good. We just got to get the swelling down. Whenever the swelling is down, I think we're going to be fine. It's actually numb. I don't feel anything right now. Definitely, it's getting a little stiff, but we're going to see. Now, Soto hasn't been on the injured list since 2021, so let's see what the manager Carlos Mendoza had to say. Here's the Skip's quote. He says, quote, not a good feeling, especially when you watch him go down like that. And it looked like he was in a lot of pain. Then he hits that ball and he looks uncomfortable running down the line. You're kind of just holding your breath there. And then once I got the news, obviously a sense of relief. It's usually maybe a couple of days. We've just got to see how he responds when he wakes up tomorrow morning. and we'll go from there. Now, what good news is Carlos Mendoza referring to? Well, Anthony Tacomo's got you covered on that. He says, quote, "The good news is that x-rays came back negative. Mets officials are confident nothing is broken and expect Soto back within a matter of days." So that is really, really good news. Seems as if Juan Soto is only day-to-day after this injury. And, I mean, look at the stats. Obviously, statistically, that's just being one reason you don't want Juan Soto hurt. 870 OPS, and this is a down year with a less than 250 batting average. Look at the career numbers. I mean, he normally has over a 400 OBP, and he's around the 400 mark this year. 25 homers, 62 RBIs, a career most in a single season, 15 stolen bases. He's having an incredible year for just an average player because it is a down year for Juan Soto. That is just how good Juan Soto is, that this is considered a down year. This is top 10 in all of baseball, and it's not even Soto's best. So, obviously, statistically, you don't want to see him out. Obviously, injury-wise, you don't want to see anyone get hurt, especially if you're the New York Mets. You don't want to see one of your starters get hurt. But more importantly, at this moment in time, less than 36 hours away from the trade deadline, you don't want to see Soto out for a long time because that could force the Mets into an impulse decision. First and foremost, here are Cedric Mullins' stats. This is a guy that is heavily rumored to be coming to New York. A center fielder is apparently what the Mets are looking for. It's apparently one of their needs, even though I personally think Jeff McNeil is just fine out in center field, but that is what Stearns in the front office is saying is a need. So Cedric Mullins has been one of those guys that is rumored to come to New York. Now, I don't want the Mets to make an impulse decision and get him because Soto was hurt. I don't want them to say, well, Juan Soto's hurt. Either we don't know how long this timetable is with his injury, or we think this is going to be a long injury. Good news is we got the x-rays. It's not going to be a long time. So the Mets dodged a bullet there because they don't have to make an impulse decision and overpay for Cedric Mullins, or more likely, Luis Robert. And look at that, a 206 batting average and an OPS below 650. I get it. I know he's hitting really, really well against lefties, and that's why he's appealing. But apparently the White Sox want Mark Vientos and some for Luis Robert. And I think that is a ridiculous trade. I've been over this time and time again on this channel. The Mets should not be even doing a 1-for-1. Vientos for Luis Robert is not fair. It should be Vientos for Robert and some if that's what the White Sox want. Maybe Luis Angel Acuna for Robert is a fair deal. I don't really know. I think Luis Robert's past is way in the rearview mirror. His prime is way in his past. But that might just be my opinion. I know a lot of people for some reason disagree with me. I just don't see it when it comes to Robert. But the good news is the Mets are not going to make an impulse decision here with Luis Robert. And they do want him, it's been rumored, we've heard from the front office that they really do want Luis Robert, but if they actually go out and get him, we will confidently know that they did not go out and impulsively trade for him. And the reason why you don't want the Mets to impulsively make a decision is, let's say Juan Soto was hurt worse than he is. Let's say it was going to be a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months. Or if the Mets just didn't know how bad this injury was, and they didn't know what the timetable was, they might have gone up to the White Sox and said, you know what, fine, we'll do that Vientos for Luis Robert deal. But the White Sox in turn would have been like, no, you desperately need an outfielder. I want XYZ in addition. I don't know, maybe Luis Angel Acuna. And then it would have had to have been Vientos and Luis Angel Acuna for Luis Robert, which is a extreme overpaying for a guy who is hitting 206, as you see on your screen, with an OBP less than 300. You would be overpaying because you're making this move out of desperation because you don't have the player or the players to field the outfield correctly to go win a World Series. So great news on Soto. I'm happy that he is not hurt, and I'm more happy at this moment that the trade deadline is not going to be impacted because of this injury. It came at the worst time. When I was watching this game and when I saw this injury, I said, wow, this is the worst possible time for Juan Soto to get hurt, because if it's serious, the Mets might overpay for either Cedric Mullins or, more likely, Luis Robert, because they are simply desperate to go fill the void. But the good news is it is only day-to-day on Juan Soto. Now, with that, we are talking about Luis Robert. We've talked a lot about Cedric Mullins. There's another outfielder that I really, really want, and he might be coming to Flushing, so stay tuned for another video on that. But as for now, I'm glad that Soto is healthy. I'm glad that our statistical monster is okay, and he's not even having a good year. And of course, I am glad that the Mets are not going to have to impulsively get Luis Robert or Cedric Mullins. So go down there in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you glad that now we don't have to make an impulsive decision? What are your thoughts on the Soto injury? Do you think it's actually going to be a couple of days? I think he'll probably be back by the time we return to Citi Field Friday, maybe Saturday, Sunday, the absolute latest. So Mets definitely dodged a major bullet there. Again, stay tuned for my next video, which is about an outfielder that I've really wanted that might in fact be coming to Flushing with new rumors dropping. Plenty of rumors dropping left and right with the trade deadline less than 36 hours away. Ab and I got you covered only here on Mets Digest, so stay tuned for all those videos. But unfortunately, this is all the time I have for you in today's update about Juan Soto. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.